The cost of World War I was massive for both winners like England and France, but worse for the losers, especially Germany, which suffered harsh surrender terms. The 1918 influenza pandemic spread destruction across Europe. The rise of the League of Nations suggested optimism, but proved disappointing and often powerless. There was an overcapacity of military manufacturing, but several industries were able to change over to peaceful purposes, including autos and consumer goods. The Great Depression, that started with the 1929 American stock crash, spread across Europe, disrupting manufacturing and more. Countries struggled to maintain democracies. Russia was the major exception, with communism dominated with the Russian Revolution, and Lenin took over the government in 1917 until his death in 1924. After Lenin, a power struggle between Trotsky and Stalin led to Stalin's power, who led the Soviet Union ruthlessly. Many communist parties started around the world, including Spain, Italy, Hungary, Germany, Britain, and Belgium. This led to political polarization across Europe. It was fascism that created the most harm, being far right, militant, and ultra nationalistic, and this movement led directly to World War II. It started with Mussolini in Italy, then Franco in Spain, finally Hitler in Germany. Mussolini marched on Rome in 1922 and established himself as dictator. Franco started the Spanish Civil War and became prime minister in 1938. Hitler became Chancellor of Germany in 1933, and the Enabling Act allowed his Nazi Party complete control of Germany. Well, good and not so much. Consider the geographic changes. Poland emerged as an independent country. Serbs, Croats, and Slovens were merged into a new country renamed Yugoslavia. Finland, Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia became independent. The Ottoman Empire was broken up and replaced by a secular Turkey. The Balfour Doctrine of 1917, which created mandates, many of which were illogical, created a Jewish homeland in Palestine, which unfortunately created the future Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Many European countries had large debts with the US, and several wanted to return to the gold standard. The concept was anyone with paper currency could exchange that for gold on demand at a fixed exchange rate. England and other countries suspended convertibility during World War I to finance military expenditures. Inflation after the war resulted in European countries delaying their return. Attempts at convertibility led to deflation and more financial disruptions. England suffered a massive loss of life in World War I, which was also traumatic for returning veterans. The power base of the British Empire was eroded as countries like India wanted independence. Ditto Ireland. The war increased the national debt, inflation, industrial depression, and unemployment, especially in mining. The Liberals were on the rise politically. Alsace-Lorraine, which had been ceded to Prussia, was returned to France, and the border with Germany moved to the Rhine River. There was massive destruction in France, especially north and east of Paris, to be paid through reparations from Germany. The economic recovery worked with industrial production and exports. plus stabilizing the franc. New industries included autos, aviation, and electricity. Paris again emerged as a cultural hub. France suffered from the Great Depression, but not as much as many other countries. Italy had been part of the Triple Alliance with Germany and Austro-Hungary, but stayed neutral at the start of the war and then joined the Allies with the promise of several new territories. They only got a fraction of what was promised, what was called a mutilated victory. Italian propaganda led to fascist leader Benito Mussolini taking over in 1922, creating a police state which was run ineptly, including his ham-handed control of agriculture. The Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh conditions on Germany, including territorial loss, large reparations, and military limitations. Economic problems were extreme, including hyperinflation, high unemployment, and economically catastrophic reparations. The Weimar Republic, which lasted from 1918 to 1933, was democratic, but with economic and political challenges from both right and left. A modest recovery happened in the mid-1920s, disrupted by the Great Depression. The rising fascist movement led to Hitler being declared chancellor of a coalition government. Then the 1933 Enabling Act created the one-party dictatorship of Hitler's Nazis. Hitler's rise to power meant a Second World War was almost inevitable, especially given the appeasement policies of England's Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain. That story begins next time on Food History and Mystery.